Unit 5, Section 2, Roman Emperors. Terrible trios. They say bad luck comes in threes, they must mean these. Meet Caesar's gang, another trio, and three awesome enemies. No one could stop the rise of these three ruthless Romans except themselves. Julius Caesar is easily the most famous ancient Roman, but he didn't get to the top on his own. He did it with the help of two Romans who were just as ambitious as he was, Crassus and Pompey. On their own, they were trouble, but together, it was trebled. They decided to work as a terrific trio, a triumvirate, in Latin lingo. Before long, these three schemers were the most powerful men in Rome. How did they do it? Each one used his special talents. Caesar the Mouth. When Caesar was a young man, Rome was rottenly rowdy. Generals spent more time fighting each other than Rome's enemies. Crowds of poor Romans rioted in the streets, and the Senate, who were meant to keep everyone under control, couldn't do anything about it. Julius decided he should run things. He gave big, impressive speeches to the people about how the rich senators were cheating them, and how things would be better if he was in charge. The people of Rome liked his speeches. But what they really liked were his expensive circuses with gladiators, wild animals, and blood all over the place. So Jules borrowed money from his rich chum, Crassus, to pay for the vilely violent shows. The Romans loved them. So they loved Caesar too. Roman. But Julius knew that the way to get really popular was to go abroad and conquer people, enslave them, and take their land in the name of Rome. So the triumvirate wheeled and dealed to get the Senate to give Caesar an army. Caesar's legions grabbed the Gauls, jumped the Germans, slaughtered the Spanish, and even invaded Britain. Caesar was now unstoppable, absolutely top of the Roman pops. Pompey began his murderous career by killing other Romans in civil wars. He was so merciless that his nickname was the Teenage Butcher. He became one of Rome's greatest generals, punishing pirates, attacking Africans, and squashing slave rebellions. The Senate thought he was the cat's pajamas. But while Pompey was away slaughtering, a jealous senator spread a nasty rumor about him. To save his own skin, scheming Pompey joined up with Caesar and Crassus. He even married Caesar's daughter, so Pompey was safe now. Or was he? Crassus, the money. Crafty Crassus made his cash during those same civil wars. While people were getting executed, Crassus brought their houses and chopped down prices. But that's nothing compared to his meanest scheme. Crassus set up his own fire brigade. Why? Well, if a mad mob torched a house, he would buy it for next to nothing from the upset owner while it was burning. Then his firemen put out the fire. But money wasn't enough for Crassus. He wanted power, so he joined up with Caesar and then Pompey too. And all for nothing. These three gory geezers could talk, bribe, and bully the Senate into doing what they wanted, but then it all started to go rottenly wrong. Crassus chopped. Crassus wanted to be like Caesar. He got the Senate to give him an army to go and fight the Parthians, who lived in what is now Syria. But the Parthians were wicked warriors. They slaughtered 30,000 Roman soldiers, so Crassus met the Parthian generals to make peace. Big mistake. When Crassus showed up, the Parthians cut off his head and sent it to their king. He was supposed to have poured melted gold into Crassus's mouth, saying, "It's a good last drink for a man who is so thirsty for gold." Pompey bumped. When Caesar returned to Rome with wagons of loot, everyone loved him. Well, everyone except for the Senate. Caesar was just too popular. They demanded Caesar hand over his legions. Caesar refused. So the Senate asked Pompey to put Caesar in his place. This meant war. Caesar's troops beat his old buddy's army, so Pompey escaped to Egypt. Caesar followed him there, only to find out that his friend turned enemy had already been murdered by the Egyptians trying to get on Caesar's good side. They gave him Pompey's head when he arrived. Caesar stabbed. While he was in Egypt, Caesar fell for Cleopatra. Together, the lethal lovers took over Egypt. Julius returned to Rome in triumph. He'd beaten Pompey, and he had a new girlfriend, and he was so popular that the Senate had to do whatever he said. The senators weren't so pleased. No true Roman would fall for a foreigner, and Julius was just too big for his boots. On May 15th, 44 BC, a gang of senators stabbed Caesar to death. He died beside a statue of his old mate Pompey. 3 down, terrible trio over. Try again. With Caesar gone, another trio took control of Rome, led by his adopted son, Octavian. Octavian. Octavian was not a pretty sight. In fact, he was short, spotty, and had bad teeth. Caesar's nephew, his adopted son, best of all, Caesar had left Octavian most of his money. Smart. Octavian wanted to avenge his dad's death, so he joined forces with a great general and pal of Caesar's, Mark Antony, and a bloke called Lepidus. Together, they hunted down and killed Caesar's assassins. Then, the trio took charge of the Senate and Rome. Just to make it a family affair, Mark Antony married Octavian's sister, Octavia. Everything was going okay until a certain lady got involved again. Mark Antony. Caesar's old mate, Mark Antony, had heard fascinating stories about Cleopatra. He reckoned that if she could capture Caesar's heart, she must be hot stuff. So Antony summoned her to Rome to meet him. When Cleo finally showed up, she did so in style, on a luxurious boat lying underneath a tent of golden cloth, surrounded by little boys dressed as cupids. The cabins were knee-deep in flower petals, and Cleo's waiting women were dressed as goddesses and mermaids. Yuck. Soppy soldier Antony fell for it, and fell head over heels in love. He dumped Octavia, and went off to Egypt with Cleopatra. Drippy duo. Antony and Cleo got up to all sorts of lovey-dovey stuff together, like dressing up as slaves for fun, eating gold off plates, and giving each other entire libraries as presents. But there was one little problem. Antony already had a wife, and worse still, she was Octavian's sister. And when Antony left his wife to go live with Cleo for a second time, Octavian had enough. Uppity Octavian got his hands on Mark Antony's will and read it out in public. It said that if Antony died in Italy, he wanted his body sent to Cleopatra in Egypt. This outraged the Romans. No true Roman would rather be buried there, so the Senate declared war on Antony and Cleopatra. Octavian got a fleet of warships together and sailed off to destroy Mark Antony's fleet at Actium in Greece. Cleopatra is one of the most famous people in history, but most people think they know Cleopatra is a pack of porky pies. Cleopatra was Egyptian. Wrong. She was actually Greek. Her ancestor was one of the Greek generals who helped Alexander the Great conquer Egypt. Cleopatra was beautiful. Well, it's not exactly wrong, but she was short and chubby with a big nose. But looks aren't everything. She was smart, sassy, and lots of fun to be with. She married Julius Caesar. Wrong. She was married at different times to both of her brothers, Ptolemy and Ptolemy. Yuck. The evil emperors. You may have thought Julius Caesar was a bit of a meanie pants, but some other emperors were 100 times worse. Here are a few of the rottenest Romans who ever lived. Emperor Tiberius, AD 14 to AD 34. Favorite saying, I don't care if they hate me, so long as they obey me. Know any teachers like that? I personally say it all the time. Nasty habits, breaking the legs of anyone who disobeyed him. Rottenest act, Tiberius had a poor fisherman stripped and skinned alive using a scaly fish and the sharp shells of a crab. Sticky end, suffocated probably by one of his helpers. Caligula, AD 37 to AD 41. Caligula was sensitive, but only about himself because he had a hairy body like a goat. Anyone who said goat in front of him was executed. He had an actor whipped to death for not saying that Caligula was greater than Jupiter, king of the gods. He can't have been all bad, as he loved his sister Drusilla very much. Rumor has it that he married her. When she died, he made the whole empire mourn for a year. Anyone who laughed, ate with his own family, or took a bath was executed. Favorite sayings to his friends at a banquet. It has just occurred to me that I only have to give one nod and your throats will be cut. To the guards of a row of criminals, kill every man between that one with the bald head and that one over there. To his people, Rome is a city of necks just waiting for me to chop. And to everyone who would listen, I am a god. Nastiest habit. His little jokes. At a sacrifice ceremony, he was given a hammer that was used to knock out the best about to be sacrificed. The priest was waiting to cut out the beast's throat. Caligula hit the priest over the head instead. Rottenest act. Caligula enjoyed nothing more than good bloodbath in Rome. But the wild animals he had to be kept alive until the day of the show. This was very expensive, so Caligula found a cheap supply of raw meat for them. He fed the animals on criminals. Sticky end. For the 6 months of his reign, Caligula was so popular that when he fell ill, all of Rome went into mourning. But they got even sadder when he recovered. Nice Caligula had gone stark raving bonkers. In the end, one of his trusted guards stabbed him to death. Others went to the palace where they killed his wife and daughter. Caligula tried to make his dear friend Ignatius a senator. Ignatius would become one of the most powerful rulers in the Roman Empire. So what? Well, Ignatius was his favorite horse. Claudius, AD 41 to AD 54. Favorite saying? Execute him. Nastiest habit? Watching criminals being tortured and men being executed. Rottenest act? When Claudius discovered that his wife was a bit of a flirt and had wild parties with her friends, he was not too happy. He had his fun-loving missus executed, but he also got rid of 300 of her pesky party friends. Sticky end, his niece, Agrippina, poisoned him with mushrooms. Nero, AD 54 to AD 68. Nastiest habit? Murdering people, including his wife and girlfriend. He had his half-brother, Britannicus, poisoned. Britannicus had a food taster who ate and drank every bit of every dish. If it was poisoned, the taster would die first. The taster drank some hot wine and passed it over. The wine was safe to drink. But Britannicus complained that the wine was too hot and ordered water to cool it. Then he drank it and he died. The cold water had been poisoned. Favorite sayings. He played the lyre very badly, but people told him he was good. The Greeks were particularly creepy about telling him he was brilliant. Only the Greeks are worth my genius, he would say. When he knew he had to die, all he could say was, "What a loss I shall be to the art of music." Rottenest act. It was rumored that Nero was behind the fire that destroyed Rome. He wanted to clear some space to build his plush palace, the Golden House. His enemies claimed that he played the lyre while Rome burnt. Sticky end. When he knew the army had deserted him and rebels were coming to get him, he placed a sword to his throat. One of his friends gave him a push, and he bled to death. Christians brought out Nero's nastiest side. He had them converted in animal skins and then thrown to hungry dogs. Or sometimes he would make his own special Roman candles. Take one Christian, tie him to a post, cover in tar, and set alight. Uppity emperors. Meet 5 more emperors, including a cheating chump, a chundering lump, and one who was wholly different. Commodus, AD 180 to 192. Emperor Commodus was an unpopular poser. People had loved his dad, Marcus Aurelius, but they didn't love cruel Commodus because he was a show-off and a sneak. Famous for fancying himself as a bit of a gladiator, he would dress up as the hero Hercules in a lion's mane and then fight. Brave? No way. Opponents were chained or maimed. He'd never step into the arena with wild animals unless they had their claws and teeth removed. They still tried their best to lick him. Awful end. The people hated seeing their emperor make a fool of himself by acting like a gladiator. After all, gladiators were usually common criminals or slaves. The final insult came when Commodus decided to go to a great ceremony dressed up as a gladiator. His family and friends just couldn't stand it any longer, so one night before the event they fed him poison. Commodus vomited it up, so they paid a wrestler to strangle him in his bath. It was cruel, but a clean end for the odious Commodus. Emperor Vitellius. Famous for eating like an absolute pig. He had at least 4 feasts a day. If he was full, he would tickle the back of his throat with a feather till he vomited to make room for more food. His favorite snacks were pikefish livers, pheasant brains, and flamingo tongues. Dirtiest deeds. Even though Vitellius stuffed his face all day long, he actually killed his own mom by starving her to death. Diocletian, AD 284 to 305. Famous for. Diocletian was a general who was made emperor by his troops. One of his first moves in the job was to cut the empire in 2. This worked rather well. He also set up a system of having 2 junior and 2 senior emperors, which stopped a lot of squabbles. What a smart idea. That's probably why Diocletian was the first emperor for ages to die a natural death. Dirty deeds. Dio was convinced that to keep his empire in good shape, he had to wipe out Christianity. What a savage idea. So he had thousands of Christians rounded up and slaughtered. Constantine, AD 312 to AD 337. famous for letting people in his empire be Christians. He finally put an end to that rotten Roman habit of throwing Christians to the lions. What made him keen on Christians? Well, in battle he saw a flaming cross with "In this conquer" written on it, which he took as a sign that Christianity would help him win battles. Beating his enemy to become ruler of the Roman world convinced Khan that he might be right. Dirtiest deeds. Although he gave Christians a break, Constantine was not constantly kind. Far from it. He had his wife and eldest son executed. So he was a deadly dad and a horrible hubby.